Are you embarrassing this family? My uncle yelled, grabbing the microphone at my graduation. You clean toilets to pay for school? My relatives laughed. I stood there in silence until the dean said, "We have a special guest." When my husband walked up and took my hand, their jaws dropped. Why had the applause barely started when the microphone screeched, cutting the joy like a knife? Are you embarrassing this family? My Uncle Craig's voice boomed across the stadium. Before we begin, leave a comment and tell us what you would do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments. We read all comments. Let's begin. I froze. My graduation cap tilted slightly as I turned my head, slow as a stone, and saw him standing at the base of the microphone, gripping it like he owned it. She cleaned toilets to pay for her degree. He sneered, and laughter erupted from the section where most of my family sat. Aunt Lisa disguised a fake cough to hide her smile. My cousin Blake gave me a hug like he'd just watched a comedy show and now thought he deserved a round of applause. I didn't say a word, didn't blink. My hands clenched around my graduation folder, trembling, but not from fear. From control. I refused to give them my tears. But then, just before another insult could tumble from his lips, the dean stepped back to the microphone, held up a hand, and calmly said, "We have a special guest today." The crowd murmured. My family looked confused. Then came the sound of shoes on polished tile. Click, click. I knew that stride, and when I turned my head, I saw him. Dark suit, silver cufflinks, calm, calculated strength in every step. My husband, Netan Ek, CEO of the fastest-growing investment firm on the East Coast, walked onto the stage, his gaze locked on mine. The crowd gasped. My uncle stumbled back like he'd been hit by a wave. Nathaniel gently took my hand and turned to face the crowd. "She didn't just clean toilets," he said, his voice strong and steady. "She worked day and night, while most people her age were giving up after failing one exam. She didn't ask for handouts, she earned it. And this woman, my wife, graduated top of her class in biochemistry while working 2 jobs and caring for her disabled neighbor." Silence. A heavy, ashamed silence. My aunt's jaw hung slack. Blake's laughter died mid-chuckle. Nathaniel turned to me, kissed my hand, and whispered, "Let's show them what real success looks like." I smiled for the first time in minutes, but that was just the beginning, because they'd mocked me for years, and I wasn't silent anymore. We walked off the stage, hand in hand, and I felt every eye on my back. The ceremony ended. Caps flew. Cameras flashed. But I only saw those stunned faces, and I wasn't done with them. Not yet. Outside the venue, the family swarmed like wasps. Uncle Craig came barreling towards us, red-faced and yelling, "What's your game, Riley? You marry rich and think it erases where you came from." I turned slowly. My voice, when it came, was quiet. "And where do you think I came from, Uncle Craig?" "A janitor's closet," he spat. "And nobody from the slums. You cleaned toilets in high school. You lived in a trailer park, for God's sake." I didn't flinch, but Nathaniel stepped closer, his jaw tight. "I chose her," coolly said. "Not for where she came from, but for what she survived." Craig laughed bitterly. "You really think her sob story makes her valuable?" "I know it does," Nathaniel snapped. "And by the way, about that trailer park, she bought the land it was on, renovated it, and rented it out. She now owns 3 properties, including a duplex in Boston." Their silence was louder than their insults. "And while you were mocking her," Nathaniel added, "she was investing." Aunt Lisa's voice cut through. "You're lying. She's just putting on an act." Riley was always the weak one. I looked her dead in the eye. "I was," I said, "because I remember you calling Mom selfish when she got sick. I remember scrubbing motel floors at 14 just to pay for her insulin while you were taking self-care vacations." Lisa paled. "That's not how it was. You were at her funeral. You said she should have tried harder to live." My voice cracked, but I didn't look away. "And then you laughed at me when I said I was applying to college. All of you did. No one said anything." Nathaniel pulled out his phone. "I think it's time you all saw what you've been doing while mocking my wife." He hit play on a video on the screen. Security footage from a country club. Uncle Craig slipping a gold watch into his pocket. Aunt Lisa screaming at a waiter. Blake passed out in his car, a DUI ticket on the dash. "Did you really think money shielded you from accountability?" Nathaniel said, still polite, still calm. "We aren't here to threaten, but you should understand something." He took a step forward. "She doesn't need to prove anything to those who couldn't even carry their own past." I met my uncle's stunned gaze. You tried to humiliate me in front of the world. You wanted me to feel ashamed. But I'm not, because the girl who cleaned toilets is the same one who owns your mortgage. Craig blinked. What? I bought your house last month through a holding company. Check your next payment notice. And just like that, he staggered. Riley breathed. You wouldn't. I smiled, but there was more. He was pale. Uncle Craig opened his mouth slightly, then closed it. Aunt Lisa clutched her pearls like she'd just seen a ghost. My cousin Blake backed away like he could somehow meld into the sidewalk, but I wasn't finished. You bought my house. Craig's voice cracked. That's not legal. It can't be legal. Nathaniel spoke calmly and concisely. Perfectly legal. You defaulted on your second mortgage months ago. Riley put in the winning bid through a shell company because she knew you'd never sell to her directly. But why? Lisa choked out. What kind of twisted person does this to their family? I tilted my head slowly. The kind of person who begged you to stop mocking her for 10 years and was laughed at every time. The kind of person who watched her mother die while you all drank champagne 3 miles away and refused to answer your phones. The kind of person who cleaned motel bathrooms while you told everyone I was chasing pipe dreams. Nathaniel's hand slid into mine. You said I was embarrassing the family, I continued. But you are the embarrassment to the family. You're not cruel because you're hurt. You're cruel because you're empty, and hurting people made you feel important. Lisa's lip trembled. What are you trying to prove? Blake snapped. You made your point. Now what? You just humiliate us and walk away. I turned to him, eyes like steel. No, I said. You humiliated me for years. Today, I walk away from your narrative. Nathaniel turned to the small crowd that had gathered near the gates, a mix of former classmates and professors watching from afar, murmuring. Let's go to the car, I said, pulling my gown back. That's when a black car pulled up, not the one Nathaniel usually drove. Grandma Graham. Blake breathed in disbelief. She looked at them sadly. All this time, I stayed quiet for too long. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. I changed my will last year, she said, handing it directly to me. Lisa gasped. Mom, what are you talking about? I gave Riley control of my estate. All of it. The land, the business, the stocks, the savings. I watched you all mock her while she worked harder than any of you. You thought she was the failure of this family, but she's the only reason this family still has a chance at redemption. Uncle Craig took a step forward, but Graham raised her cane like a sword. No, she said, her voice suddenly firm. You've taken enough from her already. I opened the envelope. Inside was a notarized statement and keys. To the lake house, Graham said. Your mother's favorite place. Yours now. Nathaniel whispered in my ear. This is the moment they realized they never broke you. I took one last deep breath and looked them all in the eye. This isn't revenge, I said. It's restoration. I'm not here to destroy you. I'm done pretending you ever mattered. And with that, I turned away. But behind me, I heard it. The sound of reality shattering. Whispers. Regret. Silence. The sound of our heels on the pavement felt louder than the chaos behind me. A final drumbeat before the curtain fell on a play no one would dare to perform again. We reached the car. Nathaniel opened the door for me with a gentle nod, but before I could step inside, I turned back one last time, because even though I had said my piece, I saw it in their faces. They still thought it was about the money, the car, the husband, the inheritance. They hadn't grasped the true weight of what had just happened, so I turned back to them slowly. Uncle Craig stood rigid, his pride crumbling. Lisa dabbed at her eyes, playing the victim now that the power had shifted. Blake crossed his arms, eyes narrowed, jaw tight, still clinging to the delusion that he could talk his way out of this. You know what hurts the most? I said quietly, just loud enough for them all to hear. It's not the way you mocked me, or laughed when I came home smelling like sweat. It's that every time I achieved something, anything, you told me I didn't deserve it. That it was luck. That it was cute. That it wouldn't last because it was embarrassing. That I shouldn't show up to family dinners in that old uniform, acting like it was normal to have 3 jobs. It was normal. I cut in, my voice sharper now. You were the ones putting on an act. Maxing out credit cards to keep up appearances at the country club. Hiding bankruptcies behind fake LLCs. Craig, you've refinanced your house 5 times. Blake, you sold your car for cryptocurrency and told everyone it was a business decision. Lisa, You once borrowed my student loan refund to pay for Botox and told me it was an investment in your public image. Their jaws dropped again, because I wasn't just speaking with emotion anymore. I was holding up a mirror. All of you crafted this narrative where I was the pathetic one, the charity case, but I was the only one who wasn't pretending. Silence. Then I looked at my grandma. I used to think staying quiet made me mature, that being humble would earn your respect, but it only made me smaller in your eyes, and I won't shrink myself to make you feel tall anymore. Graham's eyes filled with tears. I should have spoken up years ago, she whispered. I shook my head. You are now? That's enough. Suddenly Lisa stepped forward. Riley, wait. Maybe we misunderstood you. Maybe we can talk. I looked at her steadily. You want to talk now? I asked. She hesitated. Where's the family? The word hit her like a slap. No, I said coldly. We're relatives. It's not the same thing. I turned and walked back to the car without another look. The door clicked shut behind me. A final, soft click. Nathaniel leaned over and took my hand in the silence that followed. His thumb brushed gently against my knuckles. A silent promise of peace. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yes, I just realized something. What's that? For a long time, I thought proving them wrong would make me feel better, but it doesn't. What brings me peace is knowing I didn't become them. He gave me that slow, proud smile he always had when I surprised him. You became something better, unstoppable. We pulled away from the curb. Behind us, my so-called family stood silent, stunned. Pale faces. Shattered illusion. Ahead of us, the road stretched wide and open. I rolled down the window, letting the wind whip through my hair. For the first time in years, I breathed freely. No more shrinking. No more silence. No more shame. And as I looked at the city skyline, I whispered to myself, I earned this. 2 weeks later, I stood barefoot on the wooden floors of my mother's old lake house, legally mine now. The morning sun streamed through the wall of glass overlooking the water. The lake shimmered with gentle ripples, and a soft breeze kissed the curtains like a whisper from the past. I hadn't cried all day. I'd taken back my dignity. But I cried that morning, not because I was broken, but because I was whole. Because after years of humiliation, silence, sacrifice, and dismissal, I was finally in a place that felt like mine. And not just on paper, in my soul. Nathaniel came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. His voice was quiet. You didn't just survive, Riley. You turned every blow into something beautiful. I leaned into him. It doesn't feel real. It is. There was a knock at the front door. I pulled away slowly and opened it to find Graham. Cane in one hand, a soft smile on her lips. Did I catch you at a bad time? She asked gently. Never. I smiled, hugging her tightly. She stepped inside slowly, taking in the familiar living room. Your mother loved this place. She'd be so proud of you. I swallowed the lump in my throat again. I hope so. She would, Graham said firmly. And I want to apologize. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She looked me in the eye. I watched them belittle you. I watched you carry burdens a girl your age shouldn't have. And I stayed quiet because I didn't want to cause trouble. But that silence cost you dearly, and it cost me my peace. I hugged her again. Thank you for speaking up when it mattered. I should have done it sooner, but you were never alone. Not really. We sat on the back porch, the three of us, drinking coffee as the lake shimmered. That afternoon, a thick envelope arrived by courier, hand-delivered. I opened it to find legal documents confirming full ownership of my uncle's house. I had initiated the transfer the week before, knowing his grace period was expiring soon. I had the power to evict him, to destroy him the way he tried to destroy me in front of the world, but I didn't. I picked up my phone and dialed his number. He answered hesitantly. I'm giving you back your house, I said bluntly. On one condition, silence and an apology. A real one. Not in private, not in a whisper, but in front of the same relatives who laughed with you. I want them to hear it. To know I wasn't the one who brought the shame. He stammered. Why? After all of this, why would you do that? Because I don't want to become what you are, Craig. Petty, vindictive, miserable. And because I didn't fight to win, I fought to rise. He didn't say anything. I expect that apology by Sunday, I added. Then I hung up. Nathaniel looked at me, astonished. You just gave away the house. I nodded. I gave away the house. Not the power, I still have that. But I choose peace. That Sunday, at a brunch hosted by another relative, Craig stood there, awkward and red-faced, trembling. He looked me in the eye. I mocked Riley when she should have been celebrated. I tried to bury her story because I was ashamed of my own. And I need to say, in front of everyone, that I was wrong. You're not a disgrace, Riley. You're the only one among us who never pretended to be something she wasn't. The room was dead silent. Lisa held back tears. Blake wouldn't even meet my eyes. I stood up and walked out without a word because I didn't need applause, or cheers, or vengeance. I would relive that moment forever. And that was enough. Months passed. I started my own research foundation, named after my mother. Nathaniel and I traveled. We laughed more. I became luckier. I built a life far from the shadows I once lived in. And sometimes, late at night, I would remember that graduation. The microphone, the laughter, the shame. And I would smile. Because the girl who once cleaned toilets was now creating scholarships for girls like her. Because the woman they mocked in public had become a story whispered with reverence. And because every time they tried to break me, they only taught me how to rebuild myself. Stronger, wiser, untouchable. And the next time someone said I didn't belong, I would look them in the eye and say, no, you simply didn't recognize who I was becoming.